We can jump in to what we have here. We're finishing with Cain.
What do you want?
The rest of this parsha is a little
What do
bit of
you
a
want?
slog, but it does have some interesting moments. So maybe we'll do a little of this, a little bit of that, but then move on to Noah today. So I believe we're at 4:17.
Rabbi, excuse me. Can you
Sure.
make it a little bigger?
I
The-
can make it
the
a
writing?
little bigger.
Oh, fine.
Oh,
Thank
that's
you.
better.
Okay.
Much better. Thank you.
That's no trouble at all. So yeah, we're at 4:17. Cain has already killed Abel. So that's happened already. And now we're gonna moving right along, footloose and fancy free, where Cain is gonna start wandering the earth. We have it here. Yes, no, maybe?
Page 8. 8.
Oh. Yeah, I gotta get you back in Genesis here, all over the place. We're reading fast. Okay. So here we're gonna have a lot of PG-13 to R-rated scenarios here because we have to sort of begin to get more people into the world, so to speak. And so, Rick, what do we got here on 4:17? Nice and loud.
Cain knew his wife, and she conceived and bore Enoch, and then founded a city and named the city after his son Enoch. To Enoch was born Arad, and Arad begot Mahujael. Mahujael begot Methusael,
Mm-hmm.
and Methusael begot Lamech. Lamech took to himself 2 wives. The name of one was Ada, the name of the other was Zillah. Ada bore Jabal. He was the ancestor of those who dwell in tents and amidst herds. The name of his brother was Jubal. He was the ancestor of all who play the lyre and the pipe. As for Zillah, she bore Tubal Cain, who forged all implements of copper and iron. The sister of Tubal Cain was Naamah. And Lamech said to his wife, Ada and Zillah, hear my voices, O wives of Lamech. Give ear to my speech. I have slain a man for wounding me, and a lad for bruising me. If Cain is avenged 7-fold, and Lamech 77-fold.
Okay, so thank you for that. So we have a lot of people being born into the world here. Cain has a kid. Enoch has kids. We all have children here. And they try to give us here a little bit of like how things came to be, right? And so once Lamech comes over, hold on, I'm going to admit her into the thing. We have Adab or Jabal. So he's the ancestor of all of the tent dwellers and shepherds and herders. Jubal, from him come all the musicians who play the flute. And from this other one, all the artisans, the blacksmiths, the silversmiths, and metal workers of all kinds. And so it's trying to say, how do we get to be where we are now? Well, it's from this time period, where these people are giving birth to the people who are going to be the ancestors of people who have different skill sets, different trades. Yeah, Bonnie?
Did you ever establish where the women came from? That they married, or they were just there?
Just there, that the Garden of Eden experiment, you can almost think about as, what do they call it? The biodomes, biospheres, like that was happening. And then around other places, other stuff was happening too in the world. That way it's not all insult, which is, positive. So we don't have to worry about that ickiness. And now Lamech over here on 23, given a nice, you almost have to picture Lamech with a big bottle of beer, a big mug of something strong, like in a bar, saying how great he is. Listen to me and how awesome I am. If someone bruises me, you know what happens? I kill him. Someone looks at me the wrong way, I kill him too. Because he's such a big guy, a big fighter. And that Cain, like he got punished, but for me, it's like I'll just kill anyone I want. Whatever it is, he's making himself up really big. I have absolutely no reason why it's there. It doesn't really add to the story. It's a little colorful to have this drunken gigantic sort of bully doing his thing here. Because Lamech eventually goes the other way. Yes, even on 25, we have another kid for Adam and Eve. Adam and Eve get Seth, and then Seth gives a son, gets a son Enosh. And then it was that time, right, that on 26, that people begin to actually pray a little bit. People begin to invoke God's name. So at Seth's time, there's a little bit more prayer. And so then 5:1 sort of sums it all up, that the written record of the human line from they congregated human beings, male and female, blessing them, humans. Adam lives 130 years. And then, he gets, that's when he had Seth. And then after Seth, Adam lives another 800 years and has more sons and daughters that are unnamed. And then Adam dies at the age of
930.
930 years.
Where did
Okay,
they come up with those numbers?
That is a great question. And it's an important question. And this is a teaching from Joel Hoffman, one of my teachers and professors. He says there are different ways to view the Bible, as we all know. So you come across the years of Adam's life are 930 years. So what do you do with that when you see 930 years? What does your mind do when you read that? What does it do for you?
It says it's crazy.
You say it's crazy, right?
Yeah.
And so that is one strategy. But if 930 years are crazy and it's Mishigas, then you could say the whole thing is Mishigas, because it has an untrue fact in there, like 930 years. So that's the rejectionist approach, right? Where you look at that and go, it can't possibly be 930 years. Like, that's just silly talk. So it ruins the credibility, in a way, of the entire story. That's one approach. Another approach is, it's there. God said so. 930 years. Quit your complaining. What's your problem? 930 years, perfectly fine. People lived a long time back then. Stop your complaining, right? So that's the literalist approach, right? So we do the literalist and we do the rejectionist. And what we usually do in the Reform movement and other places, we massage. We almost become apologists. Well, 930 doesn't really mean 930. They couldn't really count very well back then. Maybe their years were different and their days were different. Like when God creates the world in 6 days and rests on the 7th. What's a day back then? There was no sun and moon. These numbers are just sort of like, we apologize for them. And that's fine too. But there's a fourth way of looking at this, which is not done very often, because we think we're so smart and everyone else back then was, a little bit, we don't think as much of them. So the answer is the people who are writing it knew it was Mishigas when they were writing it. They understood then that it wasn't meant to be taken literally. They just meant when 930 years, he lived a really, really long time. That's all, they're trying to say there. He lived a long time, then he died. And it doesn't actually matter if it's 930 or not. They're just trying to teach us something. He lived a really long time, and they're exaggerating themselves. And we're there here going, what does 930 mean? When they themselves probably didn't care, what it meant, in terms of the number. They weren't writing Midrashim on 930 years. They were just saying, back then, they're trying to tell us that it's a story. They're trying to tell us that it's not meant to be taken literally. And we're here trying to take it literally, or again, reject it totally. So there's different approaches to 930 years, depending on through what lens are we viewing the Bible. So a really good question. 930 years. Okay. Seth lives another 105 years when he gets Enosh, etc., etc. Then he lives in 912. You can just see where this is going. This just happens for a while. So we're just going to fast forward a little bit. Now we're going to go, to 521. 521. Melissa, do you have that?
Where is this? Oh. These are the lines of Shem there.
No, I think it's 521. Yeah.
Yeah.
It should be Enoch had lived.
Your top was a third one down.
Oh, I'm on page, the top of page 10. When Enoch had lived 65 years,
Yep.
he begot Methuselah. After the birth of Methuselah, Enoch walked with God 300 years, and he begot sons and daughters. All the days of Enoch came to 365 years. Enoch walked with God, and then he was no more, for God took him.
Okay, we're gonna stop right there.
Interesting.
It's an interesting piece because Enoch lived 65 years, and it gets Methuselah, and we might have heard that name before for someone really, 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 really old, called Methuselah as a characterization. But then it says Enoch walked with God 300 years and has sons and daughters. He lives 365 years. Then he walked with God and then was no more, for God has taken him. What do we make of that? You got to unmute if you're talking to me on the thing.
I mean, usually they say, and he died.
And he
this
died. That's
Right,
right.
and now they said, God has taken him.
Yes, indeed. So what do we make of that? There's a whole tradition,
Hmm.
and there are tremendously complicated long books called the Book of Enoch, because Enoch becomes a mystical figure, becomes this like very interesting character, and these books are written purportedly by him, or by someone who knew Enoch, and it's literally all these books that are written about Enoch, because they say that he doesn't die, he just goes up to heaven, and he's sort of hanging around, there in some way. So there's a lot of stories about this character who doesn't die, because everyone else dies, and Enoch walks with God and was no more, which is odd to say the least. Because even in the next part, you see even Methuselah here, who lives 187 years, then another 782 years, and then he dies, 969 years old, then he died, and so we have a lot of death here, right? But not Enoch. Enoch walks with God, huzzah. Okay, so very different. So again, there's a whole mystical tradition about Enoch. It's recorded in the Apocrypha, the books of the Bible that were not included in our Torah, in our Bible, but are included in the Catholic Bible. And so they do exist, and we can read them and be confused by them, but they are there, the books of Enoch. Okay, so if we skip, I read Methuselah for us. 28. Melissa, you want to keep going then?
28.
Yeah.
When Lamech had lived 182 years, he begot a son, and he named him Noah, saying, "This one will provide us relief from our work, from the toil of our hands, out of the very soil which the Lord placed under a curse." After the birth of Noah, Lamech lived 595 years and begot sons and daughters. All the days of Lamech came to 777 years, then he died.
Wow. Okay, so Lamech lives 777s. You can win a lot of money in Vegas that way on the slot machine to get 3 sevens. I hear. I don't know from such things, but I hear that that's true. And then Lamech dies at 777s. And then Noah's in the world. Yay, Noah! So we got someone that we know and someone that we care about. So, Noah's going to be a player, in our next passage here. So Noah is here, and Noah, lanuach in Hebrew means to be comfortable, to rest. And so Noah, ironically enough, his name comes from the idea of resting or relaxation, which he does not get to do much of later on in his life. He has to work his tail off a little bit, as we're going to see shortly. Okay, so Noah lives 500 years, and then he begot Shem, Ham, and Japheth. 500 years, still having babies. I'm telling you, whatever he was eating and drinking, probably pretty good. That's all I'm saying. 500 years old and still, that's when he's becoming a father. I had my third one like when I was 39, and I'm exhausted as it is. So I can't imagine chasing after a toddler at 500 years old. I don't think that's gonna work. Maybe that's just me. So anyway, we're on 6-1 now. And now we get to some good stuff, a little mysticism, a little wonkiness. We're back to PG-13/R rated over here. So Tyler, you want to pick up there 6-1?
When men began to increase on earth and daughters were born to them, the divine beings saw how beautiful the daughters of men were and took wives from among those that pleased them. The Lord said, my breath shall not abide in man forever, since he too was flesh. Let the days allowed him be 120 years. It was then and later too that the Nephilim appeared on earth when the divine beings cohabited with the daughters of men who bore them the offspring. They were the heroes of old, the men they were now.
Okay, we're going to pause right there. So what do we have here? 6-1 and 6-2. These people are multiplying and being fruitful and multiplying on the earth. And the divine beings, the angels, see this and go, that looks like fun. We don't have that in heaven. There's no hanky-panky up in heaven. So they come down to earth and they find some human women and they have a nice time. They have a good time together and they have children together. And the children are called Nephilim. And Nephilim, these are giants. These are gigantic figures. What happens when an angel, mates with a human? You get these giant, creatures that are roaming the earth. And these are maybe like great heroes. One could think these like really like strong figures that are around. They're breaking a lot of stuff, one can imagine. Because the earth is not really ready for giants. And so they're tromping around and breaking stuff. And that's not great to have this angel human being mixture, apparently. It doesn't really do great for the earth, as we're going to see shortly. Any questions about angel and human matchmaking?
Yeah, in all of my Torah classes, I have never heard this one.
You're welcome.
There you go.
That's why we're here.
I
The
know.
rabbi to scandalize you. Because that's the fun. Okay.
Are we
So with
going
that-
to, question, are we going to figure that the angels have bodies that enable them to mate with human women?
Yes, for this one, we are definitely going to assume that. So according to tradition, most angels don't have knees. And so again, things can get a little complicated depending on what they're trying to do. But that being said, like they figured it out, I guess.
Okay.
They did figure it out.
There's a will, there's a way.
I will say this, if anyone watched the movie Dogma, which I think I've mentioned more than once here, in that particular movie, the angels do not have that ability to procreate. That's not something that they have. So, but in this case, apparently they do have something going on. Just call me angel in the morning, like they're able to, they can do that literally in this case. And then there's something going on here that is a little bit more explicit.
Better than Rosemary's Baby.
Better than, yeah, you see, that went the other end, and so here we have the positive, such that it's positive. Rosemary's Baby was a different turn, to be sure. Okay, Renee, you want to pick up on 5?
When the Eternal saw how great was the wickedness of human beings on the earth, that the direction of their thoughts was nothing but wicked all the time, the Eternal regretted having made human beings on earth and was heartsick. So the Eternal thought, I will wipe the humans whom I created off from the face of the earth, the humans, and with them the beasts, the reptiles, the birds of the sky, for I rue the day I made them. But Noah found favor in the Eternal's sight.
Indeed. So it's a fascinating passage. I mean, it really is. When you look at 5 through 8, that God sees the wickedness, and this verse on 6 always gets me. This idea of God regretting, just in and of itself, that idea of God regretting is a fantastic philosophical question, right? And then it says God was heartsick. Aw, poor deity. That's not fun to be heartsick. Like, God's sad. But then sadness turns to, and I'm gonna kill them all. It's gonna be God's gonna wipe out everybody, and all the beasts and everything else too. That God has regret. God rues the day. I rued the day once and didn't get much done else because I was too busy ruining. I was an old George Carlin. So yeah, Bonnie, go ahead.
Wasn't it the angels that made them wicked?
Yeah, the angels didn't help. Yeah, the angels did not help in this situation at all. They helped create these beasts, these giant, people tromping around. And so we have to assume that on Earth there is a mixture of gigantic, human beings, regular human beings, other things going on. Just nothing's good. It's just a mishmash and none of it's working. And so God is taking a look at this and going, that ain't right. That's not gonna do it. Now here's my question. Can I get to the next Torah portion here without having to fun again.
Teach them how to do things without knees. So.
Yes, I mean, this is very tricky stuff. The things that we learn in Torah study. The things we learn. Can I not get to this thing? Okay, give me 1 second. So I'm gonna have to log out of this, I feel like. Unless I can. Oh, hold on, maybe not here. Can I do this from here? Torah study. You with me still?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. There we go. There we go. We got there. We sorted it out.
So that's where Noah comes in.
Still got it or no? Hold on. Where are you guys now? Oh, okay, hold on. Here we go. That one, but that one. Okay, now we should be sorted. Noah.
Oh, there's the.
Okay, now nice and big print, hopefully.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, good. Yeah, so in a way, you can imagine God at a whiteboard. And God had Adam and Eve in the Garden of Eden, and that didn't work out. So God goes back to the board, erases all that stuff. Let's try that again with Noah. Let's see how that works, at least pre-Noah, and God sees what's going around going, that ain't right either. There's too much of a mess going on. So now we have to do something different. And so now we're going to get, so if the plan pre-Noah, with Lamech and Methuselah and Enoch and Enosh and all those other people, if that just becomes an unholy mess, we got to erase that to start over again. And so now we're going to erase it with Noah. And so Linda White, you want to pick up here, Linda? There you go.
This is Noah's chronicle. Noah was a righteous man in his generation. He was above reproach. Noah walked with God. Noah begot 3 sons, Shem, Ham, and Japheth.
Very nice. So we're going to pause this right there just for 1 minute. For those of you who tuned into Mila Melamud's Bat Mitzvah, she spoke about this part of the Torah portion. Noah's Chronicle, the generations of Noah. Noah was a righteous man in his generation, and he was above reproach. What does it mean to call Noah a righteous man in his generation? or in his generation, he was above reproach.
Maybe he didn't play.
Means he didn't do all the bad things with the angels.
Didn't do all the bad things with the angels, right? He stepped aside there.
He was the only one.
Angels only were with the women. They weren't with the
The
men.
only one, Moses said, he's the only one
That's
that was
true.
good during this time. It's a problem, certainly. The rabbis key into this phrase in his generation, no matter where you put it. Noah was a righteous man in his generation, or in his generation, he was a man above reproach. The rabbis key into that phrase, in his generation, say, what does that mean? Was Noah a good person just in his generation? Or was he good especially because he was in that generation? Meaning that if Noah was alive 500 years later, would he still be righteous? Or would he just be another Joe Schmo walking around and not be seen as impressive? Or was he seen as really impressive despite being surrounded by yuckiness? So you imagine this way. So if you have a rose that is growing and the rose is surrounded by manure, the rose smells really good, but it's surrounded by yuckiness. If you took out that rose and put it into a better smelling area, the rose would smell even sweeter. The rose would be even better. So it's seen as a gain by Noah that he is righteous despite being surrounded by not so great things. You imagine like when what was it, the bad apple that spoils the bunch or whatever it is, like he's surrounded by bad apples, but he's righteous. How easy would it have been for him to give in and be terrible like everybody else? But he lives a very righteous life. Other people say that he's not very righteous, right? That he's not a great guy. He's just great compared to all the shmagegis that were living around at that time, right?
That's what I was going to say.
It's a low bar. It's a low bar to clear. If everyone around you is, disgusting, and he's just like slightly less disgusting than other people, then like he's better, great, mazel tov. But if you put him in somewhere else, it wouldn't be great. What they're trying to say. And where Noah gets smacked around a lot here is in a comparison to Abraham. And we're going to get to that in just in 1 minute. Let's read a little bit more and then we'll dive into some of that comparison. Linda, you want to keep going for a couple more?
Okay. The earth became corrupt before God. The earth was filled with violence. And when God saw how corrupted the earth was, how all flesh was acting in a corrupt way upon the earth. Hold on. God said to Noah, the end of all flesh has come to mind before me, because the earth is full of violence on their account. Look, now I am going to wipe them off the earth. Make yourself an ark of gopher wood. Make the ark with rooms and cover it with tar inside and out. This is how to make it: 300 cubits long, 50 cubits wide, and 30 cubits high. Make a roof for the ark, making it overhang from above by a cubit. But the ark's door in its side, and make a bottom, a second, and a third deck.
Now we're getting really complicated. We got to build this ark, right? We got to build this thing up. Everything's corrupt and evil. God's saying, you know what? Build a boat and get out of Dodge here. We got to get the gopher wood going. We have to have the sealant. We have to have the tar so the water doesn't come right in. And then we get the actual measurements: 300 cubits by 50 cubits by 30 cubits. What's a cubit?
Is it a foot or 3 feet?
Elbow to fingertip. It's a cubit.
So it's
Not really, actually, depending on the but it's actually fairly standard from your elbow to your fingertips. You get length over here more than you have over here. So this is actually generally the same for people.
pretty big.
Close enough. I think it's like 18 to 19 inches, but I could be wrong. So in that area. And so that's a cubit. And so it's going to be pretty big when it's all said and done. And so we're building this boat. Makes sense. We've heard this story before. Goodness knows. We have a sense of it. Bonnie, you want to keep going on 17?
Sure. Oh, yeah. As for
Hope you muted. You muted yourself.
okay.
There you go.
As for me, I'm going to bring the flood waters upon the earth to destroy all the lives under the heavens, all that has the breath of life in it. Everything on earth shall expire. With you, though, I will establish my covenant to go then into the ark, you, your wife, your sons, their wives with you, and take 2 of each of every living creature of all flesh into the ark, male and female, to keep them alive along with you. Every type of bird, every type of beast, every type of creeping things, let 2 of each come to you and keep them alive. And take along edible foodstuffs of every kind. Gather them up so that there is food for yourself and for them. And Noah did just as God has commanded him. That is what he did.
Yeah, so a little bit of a rough go, right? So God's going to flood the earth here, destroy everything. And God means everything. Everything's going to go. But Noah, you're cool. You're going to get a covenant, and you go into the ark with your wife, your kids, their wives, can't forget the daughters-in-law. They get to come too. That's fine. Nice relationship. Then 2 of every creature onto the boat, male and female, keeping them alive. And then not only that, you got to get food for them to eat. Oi, a lot of food. I picture the elephants on the ark causing problems. Not to mention the lions.
I would think the rhinoceros.
The rhinoceros, there's an
But not the
idea that God
unicorn.
made all the animals vegetarian for that time. So that would be a little bit easier. Or else I think that Noah's fishing off the dock, trying to hook some bodies up there. So maybe the lions could eat the bodies of dead sinners. But, again, that's just my imagination, perhaps. But you have to have meat for these animals, unless they're all veggie. Unless they're picking the veggie section of the menu. I don't know. But you have to have meat. So you got to get the food and the animals. And those 2 mosquitoes. God could have given us a break and said,
Yeah, he could have.
forget the mosquitoes. But no, they're here too. And trying to determine gender on a mosquito, I think, would be very difficult, male and female. But again, perhaps that's just me worrying about that issue. It's like, the ants and the, other bugs, male and female.
I saw a cartoon that had the anteaters going on board and saying to Noah, "You only brought 2 ants?"
Yeah, exactly right. They're going to starve on this thing. So, but they figure it out and they get on the boat. So, okay, so here's where we have the trouble. Noah did just as God commanded him. That's what he did. Huzzah for Noah. He's doing the right thing, doing what God tells him to do. But what's the problem here? Everybody else is going to be drowned and leave a rather unpleasant bloated corpse. So, it's going to be really not great. So what does Noah do? That's fine. Let me get my boat, get my family on it, get a couple beers, I guess, and it's sort of sail away. Some Jimmy Buffett in the background or something, he's just having a cruise, but everyone else is going to be dead. And the rabbis say, hey, Noah, maybe you could have, given a little bit of an argument here, a little bit of a struggle. God, maybe we don't want to kill everybody. Maybe we can find something a little different to do. Have a little tea, maybe. Let's have a conversation. And maybe we sort something out differently than eliminating all human life and animal life, frankly, from the earth. Maybe there's another idea. But Noah says absolutely nothing and gets on the boat. And so that's why the rabbis go, maybe he's not so righteous. Maybe a righteous person would have been like Abraham and argued with God a little bit, have a little bit of a conversation about whether or not it is truly a wise or just thing to do to eliminate humanity in this moment in time. And because Noah says absolutely garnished, he says nothing, it happens, as it goes. But maybe if Noah had a different idea, maybe we could have worked on something a little bit differently, but not so much for Noah.
You know, don't you should have that ark built before you have that discussion.
Also true, by the way, you know, like Noah, you know, maybe was, you know, not a little bit worried about the consequences of going back to it, you know. So
So
and
Rabbi,
again, like Noah could have had some rough neighbors too, you know. Noah, what are you doing? Wouldn't you like to know?
so Rabbi, did
Yeah.
God expect that the only people on earth would be Noah and his family? And did he want him to bring back humanity? Just Noah and the family have a righteous humanity? Or was
Righteous
it?
humanity, you know, that they're around. And again, one can assume like the Adam and Eve story, you have to hit a little bit of a fast forward, or you have to sort of like eliminate some doubt here in a way,
Yeah.
because or suspend some doubt is what I meant to say, you know. But it's, you know,
So
one
you
can
don't
guess
worry
that
about
it wouldn't work so well. What?
Do you not worry about incest? I mean, you throw that out because everybody's going to marry their sister or brother or cousin.
Well, in this case, actually, very specifically, you have daughters-in-law, right? You know, but you are right. After that generation goes, you know, then you are in trouble.
Maybe the angels come back.
Maybe
down and
angels
help
come back
us out.
down, or you know,
And
You
make
know,
normal people.
you know, it's just my cousin, you know, kind of thing. It doesn't really fly so well, you know, even in the Bible. That excuse doesn't go so well, you know. First cousin once removed, then, you know, it's not great. So you have to have more people, is what I'm trying to say, or else it gets icky quickly. And it will get icky quickly, not only this week, but next week too. Just as a spoiler, you know, because there is a little bit of some of that stuff that does go on, goodness knows, in the Bible. So Noah did what he was told, like a good boy, and he is on the ark. And Sharon, you want to pick up from there?
Where am I? On 7:1?
7:1, the eternal
Okay.
one.
Okay. The Eternal One then said to Noah, "Go into the ark with all your household, for I see that you alone in this age are righteous before me."
Back again to this
Take
in this age thing, by the way, because
Yeah.
again, like, they have it more than once. This idea of in this age, in this generation. Sorry, keep going.
That's okay. Take 7 pairs of every pure beast, a male and its mate, and 2 of every impure beast, a male and its mate. One of the birds of the sky, of the birds of the sky, 2, take 7 pairs, male and female, to give life to offspring on the face of the earth. For in another 7 days I will pour rain upon the earth for 40 days and nights, and wipe all that exists, all that I have made, off the face of the earth. Noah then did just as the Eternal had commanded him.
If Noah's a rule follower, you know, he has it. By the way, and again, the first time I read this, like actually in really detail, and I saw this 7x7 Mishigas, it threw me. We always say Noah 2x2, 2x2. It's actually 7x7 for every pure beast, and of the impure beasts, then it's 2x2. So the ark's getting more crowded than we had before.
So what is the definition of impure?
A great question, right? And so this seems to be a reference to kashrut later on, you know, the kosher laws of what we can eat and what we can't eat. And so we need more of the pure beasts that we can eat than make sure that those are still around, because we need our hamburgers. You know, it's like, you know, you got to have a nice steak once in a while, right? And a nice chicken, whatever it is. How you can make matzo ball soup if there's no chicken around? So you have to make sure you have your pure animals that are there. The impure ones, we're going to roll the dice a little bit. You know, if one of them gets sick and dies, we're out of that animal, because there's only 2x2, male and female. So, but the 7x7, I think, gives you a little bit more of a bumper, a buffer, I should say, for something to happen. That's sort of what I take from that. And then God's going to make the rains come. Also, getting the birds to stay in the ark, I think, is a little bit tough too. But again, you know, they might be flying around all over the place.
What about the stuff in the sea?
Stuff in the sea, they do okay, right? One can imagine, you know, that under the sea they're fine. Under the sea.
They're about to have the time of their life.
Yeah, they're doing great. You know, Sebastian is right. It is better under the sea. As we learned from Little Mermaid. Someone got that reference. I'm very happy. Okay. So yes. So we have under the sea. Well, yeah, they do fine comparatively, right? Especially if they're carnivorous. One can imagine. The sharks are having a good day at the office. It's like when it's food festival day here for me. It's just like, Rabbi, here's an extra latke. Rabbi, here's a hamantash we dropped on the floor. But whatever, I'll take it. I'm not picky. Just brush it off. I got like the misshapen bundt cakes. I'll go for sure. Food festival time. I'm happy to be the tester. So yes, indeed. So they're having a good time. So Noah's 600 years old. Blah, 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 blah. Where are we? Sandy, you want to pick up there? Noah was 600 years old.
Sure. Noah was 600 years old when the flood came, waters upon the earth. Noah, with his sons, his wife, and his sons' wives, came into the ark on the account of the deluge. Of the pure beasts and the beasts that were not pure, of the birds and all that creep on the earth, 2 by 2 they came to Noah to the ark, male and female, commanded Noah.
Keep going, a little more.
After 7 days, the flood waters covered the earth. In the 600th year of Noah's life, in the 2nd month, on the 17th day of the month, on that day, all the springs of the great deep broke out and the sky's floodgates opened. Rain fell upon the earth for 40 days and nights.
It's an interesting thing, so they all go to the ark, and then after 7 days, the floodwaters covered the earth, and it gives you the exact time, 600th year of Noah's life, in the 2nd month, in the 17th day of the month, at 3:44 p.m. Standard time. Like that's an AccuWeather forecast. They got it on point, exactly when the rains are going to come. No meteorologist needed. They're going to give you the rains, 40 days and 40 nights. And Noah and his buddies are safe in the ark. So Debbie, you want to pick up there at that very day?
I lost what number you're on.
13.
Okay, am I on?
No, you just muted yourself somehow.
Those animals didn't get seasick.
Oh my goodness.
I got it.
There you go. You got it.
13. That very day, Noah and Shem and Ham and Japheth, Noah's sons, came to the ark with Noah's wife and with his sons' 3 wives. They and every type of animal, every type of beast, every type of creature that creeps on the earth, every type of fowl, every bird, every winged creature, they came to Noah to the ark, 2 by 2, all flesh that had in it the breath of life. Those who came were male and female, some of every species entered, just as God had ordered him. Then the Eternal shut the door after him.
Okay, yes, it's giving us a little bit more summary. You can keep going, Debbie. Give me one more.
40 days the flood was upon the earth. The waters increased and lifted the ark, and so it rose over the ground. The waters gained in strength, increasing upon the earth as the ark coursed on the water's surface. High above the earth towered the waters, so that the tallest mountains that stand beneath the heavens were submerged. 15 cubits higher the waters towered as the mountains were submerged. Then all flesh that swarmed upon the earth perished, whether bird, cattle, or wild animal, or that which teemed over the earth, or human being. Whatever on dry land had the breath of life in its nostrils died. God wiped out all that existed on the face of the earth, human, beast, reptiles, birds of the sky. They were wiped off the earth. There remained only Noah and those with him in the ark.
Pretty bleak. So it's making it really clear that this is not survivable. There's really nothing, no part of the earth that is not submerged. From the mountains to the valleys, the oceans white with foam. Everything is covered in water. And it keeps going and going. Leah, you want to finish this off for us here? And the waters towered.
And the waters towered over the earth 150 days. God then remembered Noah and all the animals and all the beasts that were with him in the ark. So God caused the wind to sweep over the earth, and the waters subsided. The springs of the deep and the sky's floodgates closed up, and the rain was stopped up from the sky. The waters diminished apace, ebbing and flowing, draining from the earth. And at the end of 150 days, the waters had receded. In the 7th month, on the 17th day of the month, the ark came to rest atop one of the mountains of Ararat. Do I have that right?
You got it.
The waters kept on ebbing away until the 10th month. On the first day of the 10th month, the mountain peaks could be seen.
Okay, so we're getting there, right? I love this verse 8:1. You know, so the waters, well, first the waters are there 150 days. And then it says, oh, and by the way, and then God remembered Noah and all the animals. Like, you know, Noah was his car keys. You know, it's like he forgot Noah somewhere. Oh, I know I forgot to do something today. Poor Noah's out there bobbing and weaving in the ark still. And, you know, Musa had commented, you know, but we're getting some seasick animals by then. Can't be fun. Let's get some pace going here. Let's get it moving. And so God causes the wind to sweep over the earth, and it gets better. You know, things are ebbing and flowing. Then they have the ark on the mountain. You know, it came to rest on top of one of the mountains of Ararat. Not literally on top of it, but, you know, over it, I think they're trying to say, because the waters keep ebbing. But every once in a while, you will have some Yehu who thinks that he found a piece of Noah's Ark on one of the mountains. Like every year, that story comes out. Like someone's like, I found some wood on this mountain, and this wood is Noah's Ark. Sure it is, buddy. Check your meds, you know, but whatever. It's okay. Yeah, it's like people have, yeah.
Could I ask a question? So it rained for 40 days and 40 nights, and
Yeah.
all the water just stayed there?
Can't be great, right? Yeah, it just sort of stayed there. It's there. So it's taking a while to evaporate. It's 40 days worth of rain. It's going to be pretty, you know, significant.
Yeah.
Yeah, worse than Louisiana. And, you know,
Everybody's pools were overflowed.
everything's overflowing. So you have to like give some time for the water to evaporate. Then God's finally like, you know what, let's speed this process up a little bit, which I think Noah appreciated. You know, let's get back to dry land already, or at least something, getting a little closer, because it's not done yet. You know, we're going to see this in a minute here. It's not done yet. But it's just really like, it's a long journey. It takes us 40 days because you had 150 days of this bobbing and weaving, the worst cruise ship ever. And that's including the COVID cruise ships, you know, like it's the worst boat ride ever. Then you have 40 days after that. So now we're 190 days in, you know, to this thing. That Noah opened the ark's window that he had made. You gotta have a hole. I mean, if you're gonna be on a cruise ship, you gotta have one of those like windows to see. Yeah, you gotta have a porthole, or else you're just in a box forever. So you have to have a hole there. So he sees, you know, what's going on, and sends out the raven, who went winging to and fro, waiting for the water to dry. And then that didn't work so well. Then they sent out the dove afterwards, whether the dove could see if they could find anywhere to land. But the dove can't find a resting place. So the dove returns to the ark because there's still too much water there. And so Noah is very good with the birds, takes the dove back in to the ark. We're on 10. Waited another 7 days, you know, sent the dove out again. And huzzah, on 11, towards evening, the dove came back with a freshly plucked olive branch in her beak. So we have trees now at our back. So Noah knew the water was eased off the earth, then waited another 7 days to send the dove out, and the dove flies out forever, you know, and is gone because the dove can go and do things again. And doesn't have to come back to the ark. It can make a nest and can, etc., etc. And so it was a bad year. It's Noah's 601st year. You know, the man lives 600 years, you know, fine and dandy sour candy. He's doing just great. And then 600 years come, and now he's got floods to deal with. And not so great for an old dude. So On the first day of the month, mazel tov all around, the waters receded and the earth's beginning to dry. And, another 20 days later, by the 27th day of the second month, the earth had dried up. Oh, Noah, my friend, this is not a good time. Then God speaks to Noah saying, go out of the ark with your wife, your sons, their wives. Take every animal that's in your care, bird and beast, all that creeps over the earth, let them swarm the earth. Let them once again be fruitful and multiply. I gotta tell you, I can imagine it being a mad rush out of that ark. It's like, get me out of here. I don't like it. So they're gonna run out of the ark, and everyone's departing, can't leave fast enough from the boat. Noah's a good dude, builds an ark in honor of God, taking some pure beasts, because again, you have these poor animals on the boat for half a year, a little bit more. They get off the boat, they get killed for a sacrifice. So they had really no fun on this one. So some of the pure beasts and birds, they get sacrificed. And then God loves a good barbecue. I've said it before, I'll say it again. The eternal inhaling the soothing fragrance. Mesquite. God says, never again will I bring doom upon the world on account of what people do. Though the human mind does incline to evil from youth onward, it's true enough. Never again will I destroy all living beings as I have done. As long as the world exists, planting or harvesting, cold and heat, summer and winter, day and night will never end. So God says, we're not going to do this again. It's a one-time deal. It wasn't fun for anybody. We're not going to do it ever again. God blesses Noah, be fruitful and multiply. Good stuff here. That Noah and the family are going to be in charge, or the animals. Let's see anything else interesting here. On verse 3, any small animal that is alive shall be food for you. Like green grasses, I will give you them all. So the small animals can be yummy, that's fine. But the flesh, whose lifeblood is still in it, you may not eat. And so you can't eat food with blood in it, which is why if you're going to kosher something, you have to get all the blood out of it, which is why you can't get a decent steak in a kosher restaurant, because everything is well done and tastes like shoe leather. But that's another story for another day. When we get to Leviticus, we'll deal with that. But so actually my grandmother of blessed memory on my Catholic side, she felt bound by this commandment when she read it. And so she would never eat blood sausage anymore. And Puerto Rican culture, if you have blood sausage, and she's like, no, I can't eat it anymore. I read the Bible. Okay, Grandma, go for it. You do you. I wouldn't be eating blood sausage anyway. It's nasty. But that's, again, each their own to have blood sausage. Anyway, so you can't eat it. Your own blood guilt, and I will acquire your lives, blah, blah, blah. Don't kill anybody. On verse 6, the shedder of human blood, that person's blood shall be shed by another human. For human beings are made in the image of God. This is where you get what's called the Noahide laws, right? There are some laws that are commanded to Noah that are supposed to be in effect for all humanity. And so not murdering people is one of them. And then we get the covenant right here. I'm going to, on verse 8, God then said to Noah and his sons, as for me, I'm going to establish my covenant with you and your descendants and with every living being in your care. All have gone out of the ark. I'm establishing my covenant with you. Never again shall be all flesh be cut off by the waters of the flood. So that's the idea. So that's the covenant Noah gets. No more flooding. Could give him a little more, maybe. The man just lived in a boat for half a year and wasn't pleasant. But all he gets is the promise that we're not going to do it again. So Noah probably said, thank you, God. I'll take it, because if I'm 700 years old and I got to do this again, it's going to be unpleasant. So he gets that. And of course, the sign of the covenant between me and you and every living being down to the last generation. I have placed my bow in the cloud, and it'll be a sign of the covenant between me and the earth. And when I cause the clouds to form over the earth and the bow appears in the clouds, I will remember my covenant to not destroy everything again. So we get an origin story for the rainbow. Isn't that nice? And the rainbow gets to have a sign. that it's part of the covenant between us and God, to remember the story of Noah's Ark. And so Mazel Tov all around. We have Noah finally off the ark. It gets a little dark for Noah next week. We saw a little spoiler, because we're not done with Noah just yet. We have a little bit more to play with him for next week. And again, spoiler, it's not a good time for Noah. But we're gonna catch him again. Like, you think the flood's bad enough, and then you got other problems, as we're gonna see next time around. Any final questions, thoughts? As it is 8 o'clock. With all of that said, then we'll catch him on the flip side. Noah once again comes into our lives, and then we'll get to probably Abraham next week. So that'll be very nice. Thank you all
Rabbi.
very much. Adult B'nai Mitzvah people, stay where you are. Take a 5-minute smoke
Rabbi.
break, and everyone else, we'll catch you next week.
Good night, all. Thank you, Rabbi.
Thank you.
Bye. See you next week.
Bye.
Right.
See you next
Bye,
week.
everyone.
everybody.
Bye.
Good night. Good night.
Good night.